Welcome, everyone. We're thrilled to have you here tonight. I am Joe Ruffalo. I am the GM of The Hill, and we couldn't be more excited to have all of you here for the second annual Notable Staffer event. This is a night where we celebrate all the people who help the government and our country run. We might not know everyone's names, but we definitely see and feel their impact on a daily basis. And so we want to thank everyone. If you go about the party, which we'll get to shortly, you'll notice people with orange badges are our notable staffers. So please stop by and say hello and congratulate them. You know, senators and representatives wear the pins, but staffers keep the Capitol Hill running. Staying behind the scenes, they draft legislation, help constituents, deal with media, help committee work, flip my page, run research policies, and manage lawmakers' schedules. Tonight, we're going to recognize them, and we hope you'll continue to celebrate them as we go through the year, and we're about to hear from some of the people they work with on a daily basis. But first, I want to thank our sponsors who made this night possible: Amazon, the American Investment Council, the American Petroleum Institute, and a huge shout out to Samsung, who is hosting us in this magnificent space. So we're going to have some opening remarks, and then we'll hear from several members of Congress to hear about this work on a daily basis. So first up, I'd like to introduce Kelsey Conradi, who is the Director of Government Relations for Samsung Electronics America.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. Welcome to Samsung. We're delighted to have you here. My name is Kelsey Conradi, and I'm with the Government Affairs team here at Samsung Electronics America. We're so pleased to once again host the Most Notable Staffers event. It's a privilege to welcome leaders from both sides of the aisle and celebrate your professional successes as we come together, thanks to The Hill. We are proud to help recognize this diverse, bipartisan group of staffers. As a former congressional staffer in both the House and Senate, I know there are few workplaces that are quite as dynamic and fast-paced with the impactful mission of congressional offices. Ranging from the occasionally mundane day to the truly once-in-a-lifetime experience, no 2 days on the Hill are the same. Congressional staffers are often overworked and underpaid, but your work and dedication truly make a difference, and for that we thank you. Your commitment to public service and a brighter future is what makes you so notable. Here at Samsung, we understand the power of public policy and how it can impact the work of industry. Our technologies power business, transform industries, and enrich lives. And one of the ways we can achieve that is through our close partnerships with members of Congress and their staff, providing our perspective as you make the critical decisions shaping the future of our country. We appreciate all the effort that goes into the development of that policy, understanding the nuances, communicating with stakeholders, seeking compromise. These decisions have a meaningful impact on the lives of so many, bringing jobs and investment to America, encouraging innovation, and promoting societal change. We appreciate the tasks of the communicators and the coalition builders seeking to find common ground and translate complex issues into understandable stories and messages. We appreciate the often unseen work of the team leaders, the chiefs of staff, staff directors who keep offices running, juggling 100 different priorities here and in the district, and making sure that everything that needs to happen happens. So thank you for helping to lead the way for tomorrow and for the next generation of leaders. We look forward to working with you and continuing your important work. I'd like to give a special welcome to our guests, Congressman Stephen Horsford of Nevada, Congressman Jim Jordan of Ohio, Congressman John Moolenaar of Michigan, Congressman Mark Pocan of Wisconsin, Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, and Congressman Chip Roy of Texas. We thank you for your leadership as well. And congratulations to this year's class of notable staffers.
Thank you, Kelsey. Now I'd like to invite up Ben Gilo, Director and Head of Political Affairs at Amazon Public Policy.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Kelsey. Thank you for having us in your beautiful offices again. Hi, everybody. I'm Ben Gilo. I lead the political affairs team in Amazon's public policy department. I was here last year for the first one of these, and it was wonderful, and I'm glad to be back. Last year, I know there was a line around the block. I'm sure this year it has only grown. I was a former Hill staffer from the Michigan delegation, and so I know how awkward this must be for a lot of the awardees. Getting this kind of notoriety, getting recognized, especially in a newspaper, especially when the newspaper runs your picture. So embrace it, enjoy it, you deserve it, and we all want to thank you for what you do. As the article today read, it said, today we're highlighting 25 staffers whose work you have probably seen, but whose name you might not know. Together, they make Capitol Hill run. Those are certainly true words. Hopefully, you all do know someone in the Amazon office. If not, I can try to fix that. But anyway, on behalf of Amazon, I just wanted to say congratulations. Thank you for what you do, and thank you for Amazon to be part of this celebration. So, Joe, back to you.
Thank you very much. Now I'd like to welcome up our final speaker, Will Dunham, SVP of Government Affairs at the American Investment Council.
Thank you. Thanks to Samsung for hosting. My name is Will Dunham. I run government affairs at the American Investment Council, the Private Equity and Private Credit Trade Association. I was on the Hill for about 15 years, and I took a run at getting on this list. Most beautiful, obviously, was not going to happen, but notable. I thought, okay, here's my chance. Also didn't happen, but I got in through the back door as a sponsor. So here I am, sort of a testament to persistence and sponsorship. AIC is very happy to sponsor this event. Of course, we're the private equity trade, and when you hear private equity, you may think of Wall Street, but I want to leave you with 2 data points that actually point to Main Street. 85% of private equity investment happens in small businesses. And the median size of those small businesses are 69 employees. So what Wall Street and capital is actually doing is focusing on Main Street, creating innovation, creating growth, and ultimately creating jobs. Of course, tonight's not about us, it's about the honorees, and we are so happy for you. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts for your service, for your sacrifice, for the many, many hours you've dedicated to the institution, thousands of hours, probably tens of thousands of hours. So enjoy this. It probably is a little awkward for you to get this recognition, but enjoy it, forward it to your families. Maybe they can finally figure out what you do, and enjoy the party tonight. Have a great one. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I guess I should congratulate you on your sponsorship as well then. Now we're going to have a brief panel. I'd like to welcome up a number of members of Congress. We'll start with Congressman Stephen Horsford, Democrat of Nevada, the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus. Congressman Jim Jordan, Republican of Ohio, chair of the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman John Molenar, Republican from Michigan, chair of the House Select Committee on China. Congressman Mark Pocan, a Democrat from Wisconsin, chair of the Congressional Equality Caucus. Congressman Chip Roy, Republican from Texas, member of the House Judiciary Committee. There he is. And Congressman Jamie Raskin, Democrat of Maryland, ranking member, House Oversight Committee. And we'd like to welcome our own congressional amazing writer, Michael Schnell, who is going to host the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to all our members of Congress for being here. I like to say I cover the House, so it's happy to see a panel full of House people. We wanted to bring you guys up here to talk about the importance of staffers from your vantage point. We see it from one end, but we wanted to talk to you guys. Congressman Roy, I want to go to you first. You notably were a staffer. You spent a couple of years in Senator Ted Cruz's office as his chief of staff. Well, actually, first, I missed my first question. Everyone will go around the horn. Everyone just say something about, a few words about your honorees and maybe a memory you have from working with them.
I get to start first. My chief of staff, Sabrina Hancock, she does a great job. And when I hired her, she came out of the Judiciary Committee, which Jim will appreciate, where she worked for Goodlatte and worked on a lot of border issues and stuff over there. But Sabrina is one of the best people I know, and trust her to run the office, and it couldn't be someone who deserves the honor more.
Congressman Pocan.
So Jordan is with a Quality Caucus director, and just to give you an idea, I think we're the largest caucus in all of Congress at over 190 members. So think about, when you got to deal with a dozen or 4 dozen, he's got to deal with 190 members, and I think that says a lot. But whenever there's legislation, I'm always amazed at how he does a search, and no matter where the bill is, he can find language that we may not have to be watching. And no offense to anyone up here, but some people have kept us busy this session. Because of that, Jordan does an exceptional job, and we're really proud of him. So thank you, Jordan.
Congressman Molenar.
Well, thank you. I want to introduce Jalissa Walsh, and she's hiding behind the other people there. All right, she's got a fan club back there. Jalissa leads our legal team with the select committee on the strategic competition with the Chinese Communist Party. And she's really been a leader on legislation, the TikTok legislation. When you think of some of the reports we've done on Shein and Temu, whether it's some of the investigations into the issues in the financial sector or research security, she's really been a lead. And she is a unique combination of someone who's very tough, but someone who's very kind, kind of a velvet hammer. I've heard that term used. I liken her to one of my favorite children's stories in the Chronicles of Narnia, C.S. Lewis. There's a description of Aslan, the lion, who's kind of fierce, but is nice to kids. And she kind of reminds me, there's a point where one of the kids goes, well, is Aslan tame? And the other one says, well, he's not tame, but he's good. And that would be Jalissa. And when she does these investigations, she is tough, but she's always respectful and someone who's always out for the good of the country. She's also a lot of fun, great sense of humor. And I'm told that her dog Daisy is kind of one of the main motivators of our team. So as the honorary mascot, Jalissa Walsh.
Congressman Horsford.
Well, first, it's great to be here tonight. To all of the notable staff, you deserve all of the recognition. And I'm proud that Vincent Evans is the executive director of the Congressional Black Caucus. The interesting thing about Vincent and I is we share a birthday, April 29th. We did not know that before we started working together. We're very, very strong-willed individuals. He's a type A personality, but he also likes to get things done. And one of the things that I'm so proud of working with Vince over these past few years is the fact that he anticipates issues before they emerge. He is inclusive to all of the team members on the CBC staff, as well as the 60 members of the CBC, the largest in our history. And all of the chiefs, the legislative directors, the comms teams that have to know what it is we're doing on a daily basis, and our external partners, hundreds of individuals who are looking for direction from the Congressional Black Caucus. I'm just proud to work alongside as someone as dedicated, as committed as serving the people as Vince Evans, and we salute you tonight. Congratulations. He's a lot younger than me, though, and he has a better beard.
Congressman Raskin.
Well, thank you much, and congratulations to all the great staffers. I suspect some of them are my constituents, and so I'm proud of all of them. I'm here to honor Arthur Uenchik, who's the chief counsel of the minority side on the House Oversight and Accountability Committee. He was a tax attorney over at Department of Justice and doing all the IRS cases, and so he came with an extraordinary background of understanding, how to understand financial crimes and different tricks that are played. And so we pledged that we would be a truth squad during this Congress, and he's kept that promise for us, not just in terms of our friends across the aisle, but in terms of us, too. And any time that I've been overzealous or tempted to get there before all the evidence, he's always put the brakes on. And so I'm very grateful to him for the great job he does. There's something that is unusually nice and kind about him as a Capitol Hill lawyer, and I couldn't quite figure out what it was. It was something just overly civilized and cultured in his case. And then one day he told me, I think, unless this was a dream, you'll have to tell me, Arthur, but I think he told me that either his mom or his dad was French. And so he doesn't play total hardball all the time, and I appreciate the fact that he brings a civilized touch to everything that he does. Arthur Uenchek.
And Congressman Jordan to end it off.
I was first going to say it's quite the panel. Raskin's my favorite Democrat to argue with, and Chip is my favorite Republican to argue with. Molinar and Horsford are two of the nicest guys you can find, and Pocan and I graduated from the University of Wisconsin the same year, 1986. Pocan fit in a little better in Madison than I did, if you understand that great town. But we're here to recognize Steve Castor. One of the lines I learned a long time ago that I think is applicable here is, hard work doesn't guarantee success, but it sure improves your chances. And Steve is the hardest working guy on Capitol Hill. And we have become friends, worked with him on the Oversight Committee, worked with him now on the Judiciary Committee. And so just such a good guy. And you all remember during impeachment, he's not only a hard worker, he's pretty cheap. You remember he had the Whole Foods bag when he walked into the impeachment hearings with all his notes and all the information there. But Steve is a good man, a good family, and the kind of guy you want in public service. I think probably all of you are. I mean, I don't know everyone, but good people work on Capitol Hill, and Steve Castor is one of the best. And I count it as a privilege to get a chance to work with him and serve with him.
All right, I now want to get into a little bit about how staffers influence your guys' daily life, how these folks help you guys get your job done. As we said, your name is on the door, but the staffers are behind the door really helping out. So, Congressman Roy, going to go back to you with that question I mentioned earlier. You spent some time in Senator Ted Cruz's office as a chief of staff. How did your experience as a staffer influence how you operate now as a member of Congress?
Well, working for a wallflower like Ted Cruz, it has an impact on you as a staffer, as a chief of staff. Funny story, the infamous Ted Cruz filibuster, 21 hours long back in the fall of '03. That was my first year as his chief of staff. And everybody remembers the Green Eggs and Ham Dr. Seuss reading. Oh, that came about because we were talking to the senator, and he's like, what am I going to talk about? I said, well, his daughters are back home. He's like, well, I'd like to read a story to my daughter. So we're scrambling, going all over the hill, talking to our friends, trying to find books. One of my buddies who lived 2 blocks away, we went and he just brought us a bunch of Dr. Seuss books. And so that's how Green Eggs and Ham ended up being read on the floor of the United States Senate, was us running over to go grab books. But this is all about, to me, it's about creativity as a staffer, trying to figure out how to come up with different ways to try to crack through. I was also a lawyer for John Cornyn for 5.5 years on the Senate Judiciary Committee, worked on Supreme Court nominations, had a Cocker Spaniel who might have relieved himself on the feet of a Supreme Court justice. You have all sorts of stories that happen over the time when you're a staffer because you're put in all sorts of crazy places. But I think what Jim said is correct. And for all, we represent, a few of the nominees, but there's obviously more here. Hard work is the whole thing, right? And that's my view. It's like the harder you work, the more you're going to be successful in this town. And I'm sure it's true for all of these guys. I know it's true for Sabrina. I went first, so I don't think I extolled her virtues enough relative to everybody else. I have a concern in this town that, everything's been said, but not everybody said it, right? That's the problem in Congress. But, Sabrina epitomizes that in terms of hard work. And it's somebody, she's always, first there, the last out, always there working, working on the weekends. If I'm checking in, she's like, I'm in a coffee shop, she's working on something. This is a bipartisan crowd, so you're not going to agree with the product. But when we got H.R. 2 passed, whether you like it or not, it's not here about substance. That took a lot of work, right? And that started a year ahead of time when we put out the Texas border plan. Now, this isn't a product out of, the conference. It's out of our office. We produced that and put it together and distributed it. We just distributed a 40-page book on the border situation with facts and figures and stuff. We did that out of our office doing hard work. That's not something that a lot of offices always produce, and that's because you have staff that's dedicated to the cause of working around the clock to produce that. And that, to me, is what I learned from John Cornyn and Ted Cruz. Let me just say I didn't sleep a lot when I was Ted Cruz's chief of staff. But I'm proud of that time, just like I know these staffers are proud of their time.
Like a true staffer bringing props to the presentation right there. Congressman Pocan, you're one of a few folks up here who spent time in their state legislatures. You served in the Wisconsin State Assembly for 14 years. Talk about the difference between staffer influence and working with staffers on the federal level compared to how it was on the state level.
I don't say it would be that different because Wisconsin had a pretty professional, full-time kind of staffing for our legislature. I'm very fortunate. My chief, Glenn, has been with me for 26 years. So I don't know what he did in a past life that wrong, but he's paying it now. But for all 14 years there, 12 years here, I think the best kept secret that's not a secret to this room, but it is back home, is, everyone here is doing all the work so that we look good. I mean, the only thing we really do on our own, and sometimes even you have to do it, is we're professional panhandlers, right? We call up and we raise money. It's one of these things doesn't belong with the other Sesame Street thing of our jobs, but otherwise, whether it's the 1 minute, the 5 minutes, the committee questions, the work that you're doing back home so we look good getting things done, it all comes out of all your efforts. So all of us, doesn't matter where we come from politically, really appreciate it. And it's no different, in at least a more busy state legislature or Congress. So just to everyone, thank you.
Congressman Molinar, you are the chairman of one of the more bipartisan committees on Capitol Hill, the Select Committee on Strategic Competition between the U.S. and Chinese Communist Party. How do you foster that bipartisan cooperation, not just among the member level, but also on the staffer level?
Well, first, let me just say, I think right from the start, the leadership in both parties embraced the idea and committed to it and set the tone. I think the members on the committee are very serious. They're all trying to understand the dynamic with respect to China and how we can serve our country's best interests. So I think that started. But I will tell you, the staff has been fantastic. And I would say the trust that's been developed, I think the knowledge and expertise has been amazing in terms of the issues they're dealing with very intertwined economies, different military issues, a broad spectrum, and I think the trust and the credibility of our staff working together has meant a lot. So when we've taken trips together, you wouldn't necessarily know who's the Republican staff, who's the Democratic staff. We're all trying to learn. And I would say in committee, most of the members' questions are really, you couldn't tell the difference between the two because we're all trying to get to the truth and figure out, okay, as a country, how do we go from here? And Julissa has really, been just a great example of that.
Congressman Horsford, you, according to Pew Research, the 118th Congress is the most racially and ethnically diverse, but Pew also said that that's not exactly the case among staffers. What opportunities are there where you can increase the diversity of staffers so it's more in line with the member level?
Yeah, this is something that we really need to have more dialogue about and actually action. There are only 17 Latino or Latina chiefs of staff in all of the Congress, House and Senate, out of 535. I'm proud that Ivana Kinsella is chief of staff in my office. It reflects the diversity of my district. Miguel Ayala, who's our senior advisor of strategic communications as well. These are people who help inform me and my team to deliver on behalf of our constituents. There are only 20 black chief of staff right now. That's 0.03%. And it's why the Congressional Black Caucus released a report on what good looks like, a corporate accountability report on diversity, equity, and inclusion with Fortune 500 companies, where we saw more than 200 of these companies affirm their commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion as a business and talent imperative. And that was led by the Congressional Black Caucus staff. They did the work, they got the responses, but we have work to do in the Congress, on the House and the Senate side in this regard as well. And so, I think we need more opportunities to have dialogue like this. And it's not just diversity in racial and ethnicity, it's diversity in thought, in perspective, because that is what makes us stronger. That is what is going to make us be able to deliver better public policy and make sure that everyone's voice is included in the process. So if you haven't done so, go to cbc.house.gov and pull down our report, What Good Looks Like. There's 12 performance indicators that corporate America is leading on, and it's time that the Congress adopted as well.
Congressman Raskin, Congressman Molinar touched on this before, but the trust that's fostered between staffers and their members. Staffers a lot of time are handling sensitive information for their members. They're sometimes speaking on behalf of their members. How do you foster that trust and that relationship between a staffer and a member?
Well, I was a state senator too, and I had one person who was my legislative director, my constituent service director, and so on. So, in those days, I basically answered every letter myself, and which is why my current staff tells me I'm such a control freak when it comes to letters and stuff like that. But anyway, I digress. I have people who've been with me for a long time, and I think that when it comes to trust, there's no substitute for that sort of long-distance relationship over time, and that experience where you go through a lot together, and we've certainly been through a lot together, and it's like your colleagues. I mean, I've even been through a lot with Jim Jordan, for example. We've been through a lot of stuff together, So there's a certain kind of trust that builds, and obviously, I'm listening to what Stephen said, about diversity. There's a lot of diversity in our offices, and at the same time, the people who stick with you are the people who probably you have the most kinship with in terms of values and in terms of principles over time. And I'm sure that's why Chip Roy was such a success as a staffer on the Senate side. I mean, he really saw things the same way. I don't know why, but he saw things the same way as those senators, and they came to trust him, and he trusted them, and that obviously helped to build his career. I think Jim McGovern is another example of somebody whose career began as a House staffer, and then he decided he wanted to run for office. I didn't realize how unusual that was, actually. I was having a conversation with some of my staffers that was eye-opening for me this week, and several of them said they would never even think of doing what we do. They just said...
Very smart staff.
Yeah, I mean, they're basically saying it's a completely imbalanced life that we lead, and that at a certain point, the staff can turn it off, or at least there's safety in numbers. They can say, oh, so-and-so is working on that this weekend, call them. But we never seem to turn it off. But I think it is that experience factor that is the key thing that builds trust. And look, accidents happen, mistakes happen, and we have to just learn to accept that that's part of life and forgive each other. And then I think that also builds a kind of trust that people understand they can make a mistake sometimes, and then, it's not like they're exiled.
And then Congressman Jordan, you're the longest serving member of Congress on this panel right now, so congratulations on that. From your vantage point, what's been the biggest change in how Washington and specifically Capitol Hill runs over that long tenure in the House?
No, it's just more partisan. I mean, that's the biggest change. I don't think that impacts the staff. Staff are just great people who work hard, but the town just got more partisan. That's not always good. Sometimes I understand it. Sometimes I wish it wasn't quite that way. And when we can come together like we did last week on the bill that enhance protection for the people running for president, that make the Secret Service protection, that makes sense. So, but what we've tried to do over that time relative to staff is find the best person. Our chief of staff at our office started when he was started for me 18 years ago when I first got here. It was an intern. He's now our chief of staff. And when he was an intern, he was the first one in every day, the last one to leave, and worked his tail off and became our chief of staff and does just an excellent job. Chris Sixon, who's a staff director of our committee, is one of the hardest working guys as well. And you have good people that are senior staff, and they will hire other good people, and that's how you get things done. I mentioned the work ethic of Steve, but I mean, it's true. We've done 101 subpoenas, 140-some different interviews or depositions, and Steve has to prepare, and his team has to prepare for every single one. That just takes time and effort, and yet he does it, and he does it with a smile on his face, and he does the work you have to do, and goes against Arthur in some of those depositions and transcribed interviews. But that's the way the place works, and that's a good thing. So I just keep coming back to that the work ethic of the top people. It permeates to everyone, and that's how you get, I think, quality things done on Capitol Hill.
We've got a little over 5 minutes left, so we'll go around the horn one more time if anyone wants to just offer some closing remarks, talk about the importance of staffers, whatever comes to mind. Congressman Roy, we'll start with you.
I mean, look, for me, Jim touched on it a little bit. You know, I think of my staff, and Sabrina's been with me from the beginning. There's another woman here, Hannah, who does my national security portfolio and veterans affairs stuff. She was an intern in my office from the beginning. Now, I mean, I'm what, 5.5 years in, so it's a little shorter tenure. But point is, most of the people, you know, I've got either worked their way up within the office or came from another office similarly. And so it's about, you know, the old adage Jim talked about, one of the quotes, right? People say, man, you really got lucky, like an athlete, you really got lucky. It's like, yeah, the harder I practice, the luckier I get, right? That's the thing, right? The more you go through the motions and do what you're supposed to do, the better you produce the product. And so all the people in the office that have been, from the very beginning, coming in, showing up, working, doing what it takes, to Jamie's point, I mean, that was me in Cornyn's office, and then ultimately Ted's office, the pit stop with Governor Perry, and then private sector, and then back here. That's what it is. And look, we're just really blessed to have staff. Those of us who have been there, we know it. And you know, you're there answering a text or something that pops into our head at 10 o'clock at night or 6 o'clock in the morning or on an airplane. My staff hates it when I get on the airplane, because they know I'm sitting there with my attention. I can just sit there and like fire away ideas and thoughts, and they're like, oh my God, please let the Wi-Fi be down. Please let the Wi-Fi be down. And literally, I mean, they'll say that when the Wi-Fi's down, they're like, oh, what a good day. But like, we're just blessed to have you and on both sides of the aisle, so thanks.
Congressman Pocan.
I didn't know I was allowed to text when I was on the plane. That's a good idea. Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Staffer's
going to be going after Chip Roy for that one.
I just want to say, I think you all know it, but for those of you who don't, you know, as you move on, you are all still part of our extended families. And I think one of the things that makes me the happiest is I get a chance, one of the few times my husband will fly out here is because someone's getting married from our extended family. A couple of them have had me do magic tricks at their weddings. Like, you know, like whether you like it or not, as dysfunctional as our family may be, we really do appreciate it and extends. And I'm so happy when I see someone moving on to something else. And I think it just, again, shows how much, regardless of political party, you just mean a lot to us. So, but extended family is important to mention.
Congressman Molinar.
Yeah, I would just add, you know, I think one of the things I've appreciated, whether it's on our committee staff or our official office staff, is people who are working as part of a team. And I've just been very impressed with the people I've worked with here who are very dedicated, hardworking, want to be part of something meaningful, and are using their gifts and talents to serve. And so I admire that. I want to congratulate all the awardees and every staff member who's here today.
Congressman Richard.
I want to say thank you. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, Morgan, Freedom, Asia, the entire CBC team, because you guys are a team. And you lead a team. It's weird because a lot of attention sometimes is on the member or the chair, but it's the team that's delivering every single day. They're doing things that I never see, let alone other members see. And I think that tonight is about recognizing the fact that you all could be doing a lot of other things, but you chose this career in this moment of time of public service. I know you have a servant heart. You care deeply about the people, the constituents. The CBC collectively represents 120 million Americans. That's 1/3 of the US population. And you care about all of them, regardless of race or background or region. And you're working every day to make sure that we deliver for them, to make this place a little bit more accountable and responsive to them. And I know you get mad at me. They hate when I have Wi-Fi, because I have a 5-hour flight between here and Vegas. That can be a real long time with a whole lot of ideas. But in the end, it's about serving the people. And I just really want to commend all the notable staff tonight, but especially Vincent Evans, because you're not just a team member, you're a friend. You're a friend. And I've come to respect what it is you tell me. He tells me, calm down, Mr. Chairman. Can't do that, Mr. Chairman. Can't say that, but you do it with love, with respect, and with honoring the people that we serve. I love you very much.
Congressman Raskin.
So I want to tell you a little story, but before I do, I want to thank the Hill for putting this together. I think it's a wonderful thing to do, to focus on the staff. And I was thinking for a second it was a very kind of altruistic and philanthropic thing to do, and then I realized you're just trying to build up the pipeline for leaks to get into the newspaper. So
Members
Don't
leak a
tell the
lot more than
strategy.
staff, and we know it's true.
But I never worked on the Hill, unlike Chip. But my father worked on the Hill, and there's a story I've heard about him, and I'm not sure it's true, but I've heard it from enough people that I accept it as true, where he arrived at the Hill at a very young age. I think he was like maybe 22 or 23. And he worked for a congressman from Wisconsin named Robert Kastenmeier. Apparently somebody else came to work there and then asked my dad. They said, well, you know, this seems really confusing and there's so much going on, and what do you do? And my dad said, it's actually really easy. You just figure out what you want to do and then you make the congressman do it. So I was listening to Jim, talk about how the partisanship is kind of fiercest among the members, and I think that's probably right. I mean, because we spend, I hope, maybe 50 or 60% of our time thinking about public policy, but we spend inevitably 40 or maybe 50% of our time thinking about politics and elections and all that stuff. And the staff, I think, has the relative luxury of being able to focus on policy for 80 or 90%, maybe in some cases 100% of the time. And I think of so many cases, and this is true of Arthur and everybody he works with on the committee, Julie Taken, who's our chief of staff, and Lauren and Nellie, Aaron, everybody who's here. I mean, they have so many times worked things out with the majority staff for us that I had not seen coming, that I had not predicted or suggested, but they figure out a way forward. And I think the staff plays a very effective function there where, they're not quite so caught up in the next TV soundbite, but they're really thinking about, the next hearing or the next markup and how we can move things forward. So yeah, that's, I think it's a meaningful thing. And therefore, the members, like, I didn't know Arthur when I, took over as the ranking member on the Oversight Committee. I inherited a lot of staff people, and, he started off just kind of as a staff person, very quickly became a legal counsel, a lawyer who I came to trust all of the time. And now he's really even bigger than he's like an advisor to me about so many things. And I very much look up to him and his judgment. And so the staff does indeed play a critical and a positive role for Congress.
Congressman Jordan, close us out.
Well, I would just say thank you to all the staffers. I think you do your work for the same reason we do our jobs. You love this country. It's a special place. It really is. Now, we have different ideas about what needs to happen to make it even a better place, but you do it because you love the greatest country ever. Some of you may have seen when Scottie Scheffler won the gold medal at the Olympics. Any of you, I don't know if you've seen it. I like to pretend I can play a little golf. Chip could actually play. But Scheffler wins. Remember, Scheffler, he's on the award stand. The flag's going up, and he's receiving the gold medal. He's won the tournament. Scheffler's the #1 player in the world. This year alone, I think he's made $60-some million. It's an amazing guy. I don't know him. I've not met him, but by all accounts, a wonderful man,
Hook 'em
wonderful
horns.
family.
Just got to throw that out there. Hook 'em.
Wonderful family, wonderful Christian guy. But he's on the award stand, he's watching the flag go up, they're playing our national anthem, and he tears up. And Polly and I were watching it, and as he tears up, you tear up watching him get emotional. And he gets emotional because this country is special. It really is. And we get to participate in the lawmaking and the governing of the country, and you are all a critical part of that. So thank you for what you do. I really appreciate Steve Castor and the team that we have on our staff who've been working together for 15 years, the top staff have. They are good people who love the country, just like these folks up here who put their name on the ballot and run for office. And frankly, just like the press, who are mentioned in our Constitution and hold us all accountable. That is how this great country is supposed to operate. So thank you for putting this together.
Thank you all for doing the panel. Great conversation. Congratulations again to the nominees. Passing it over to Joe Ruffalo.
One last thing before we go. I'll ask all the staffers, the notable staffers, to come up. And I believe Representative Garcia and Representative Cole are here as well. We'd love them to come up. We're going to toast the staffers, and then we can start the party for real.